The moment I turned down the job offer at Mason Technology, I knew my life would change forever. I just didn't realize how much. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," my father said, his voice tight with anger. We sat in his home office, the same room where he planned his own rise through corporate America. "This job is a golden ticket, Daniel. Vice President of Operations at 26? Do you know how many people would kill for that opportunity?" I looked down at the offer letter on his mahogany desk. The salary was impressive. More money than most people my age could dream of. The benefits were spectacular. The prestige was undeniable. And I wanted none of it. "I can't take it, Dad," I said quietly. "I have my own project, my own ideas." "Ideas?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your little app startup? That's not a career, Daniel. That's a fantasy." He wasn't entirely wrong. My company, Novatech, was still just a concept. An innovative AI-driven personal assistant that could revolutionize how people manage their daily lives. But we had no funding, no office, and no guarantee of success. What we did have was potential, and a team of brilliant developers who believed in the vision enough to work for equity instead of salaries. "Mason Technology is offering you everything," my father continued. "Security, status, a real future. Don't throw it away on some pipe dream." "It's not a pipe dream," I insisted. "The technology we're developing could change everything. We just need time to—" Time. My mother's voice cut in from the doorway. She stepped into the office, elegant as always in her designer suit. "Time to waste your life? Time to embarrass this family?" I should have known she'd be listening. In our family, career decisions were never just personal. They were a matter of family reputation. "Mom, please. Try to understand." "No, you understand." She placed her hands on my father's desk, leaning forward. "Your sister took the right path. Look at her now, senior analyst at Goldman Sachs, making partner next year. Your brother runs M&A at JP Morgan. And you want to throw away a VP position to play with computers." I thought of my siblings, both married to their jobs, both living the lives our parents had mapped out for them. Both miserable, though they'd never admit it. "I'm not throwing anything away," I said. "I'm choosing my own path." "Then you can fund it yourself," my father declared. "If you turn down this job, don't expect any support from us. No more trust fund. No more allowance. No more safety net." I'd expected this, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. My trust fund had been my backup plan, the cushion that would let me pursue my dreams without fear of complete failure. "You can't be serious," I said, even though I knew he was. "Dead serious." He pulled out a document I recognized, my trust fund agreement. "Your mother and I have already spoken to the lawyers. The terms are clear. If you don't accept a suitable position in your field by the end of this month, the fund reverts to us." $3 million. Gone with a signature. My mother touched my shoulder, her voice softening. "Darling, we're doing this for your own good. Take the job at Mason. Join the real world. In a few years, you'll thank us." I stood up slowly, my decision crystallizing. "No," I said. "I won't." "Then get out." My father's voice was ice. "Don't come back until you've grown up and learned how the world really works." I walked out of that house with nothing but my laptop, my savings account, and an idea that I believed could change the world. Behind me, I heard my mother crying, my father's heavy sigh of disappointment. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about reality. Instead, they were giving me the push I needed to create my own. The next few months were brutal. I moved out of my luxury apartment into a tiny studio in a questionable neighborhood. I sold my BMW and bought a used Honda. I learned to live on ramen and coffee, pouring every spare dollar into Novatech. My team worked out of my apartment, crowded around a folding table I bought at Target. We coded for 18 hours a day, subsisting on energy drinks and determination. My family made sure everyone in our social circle knew about my breakdown. My sister Caroline called once, not to offer support but to remind me that Mason Technology's offer was still open. "Just apologize to Dad," she said. "Admit you were wrong. It's not too late to fix this." But I wasn't wrong. Every line of code we wrote, every problem we solved, every small breakthrough convinced me more that Novatech was onto something revolutionary. Our AI wasn't just another digital assistant. It learned, adapted, and anticipated users' needs in ways that existing technology couldn't match. It could manage schedules, handle communications, and make decisions with almost human intuition. 6 months after my family cut me off, we had a working prototype. 8 months in, we had our first interested investor. I'll never forget that meeting. Sarah Chen, a young venture capitalist known for spotting the next big thing, sat in my cramped apartment, watching our demo with increasingly wide eyes. "This is incredible," she said finally. "How are you doing this?" "The learning algorithms, the predictive modeling. It's years ahead of anything else out there." I explained our technology, watching her expression shift from interest to excitement. "We're not just building a better AI," I told her. "We're creating a true digital companion. Something that understands not just what people do, but why they do it." She took out her phone right there and made a call. "Jack, clear my afternoon. I've just found our next unicorn." 2 days later, we had our first round of funding, $5 million from Chen Ventures, enough to rent real office space, hire more developers, and start turning our prototype into a real product. I wanted to call my parents to show them I hadn't been chasing a fantasy, but pride stopped me. They'd chosen not to believe in me. Now I had to prove them wrong, not just for myself, but for everyone who'd ever been told their dreams were too big. A year passed. Novatech grew from 5 people around a folding table to 30 employees in a downtown office. Our test version had 100,000 users and a waiting list twice that long. Then came the article in Tech Insider, Novatech, the AI startup that's revolutionizing personal technology. My phone buzzed with a text from Caroline. "Dad saw the article, called it beginner's luck. Says real success means longevity, not just good press." I smiled, thinking of the meetings scheduled for next week, the partnerships we were negotiating, the numbers our accountants were projecting. Dad wanted longevity. He had no idea what was coming. 4 years after my family cut me off, I sat in a sleek conference room on the top floor of Novatech's headquarters, watching my team rehearse our IPO presentation one last time. Current user base exceeds 50 million globally, our CFO reported. Revenue growth is 300% year over year. Conservative market valuation puts us at $12 billion. $12 billion. The number still felt surreal. My phone buzzed, another message from Caroline. She'd been texting nonstop since the IPO announcement hit the news. "Dad's furious you didn't tell us about going public. Says you're being childish. Mom's upset you didn't ask for their advice. Please call them." I set the phone aside. Let them stew for a few more days. They'd find out the full story soon enough. Sarah Chen, who'd become both our lead investor and one of my closest advisors, caught my eye across the table. "Ready for tomorrow?" I nodded. Tomorrow would change everything, not just for Novatech, but for my family's carefully constructed worldview. The press conference starts at 9 a.m. Our PR director reminded everyone. CNBC will broadcast live. Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg already confirmed coverage. I glanced at my watch, the same Timex I bought when I sold my Rolex to fund our first server setup. Let's call it a day. Everyone get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Back in my office, I found an email from Mason Technology, the company whose job offer I turned down all those years ago. They wanted to explore partnership opportunities. Too late. We'd already signed an exclusive deal with their biggest competitor. My assistant popped her head in. "Your father called again. Said it's urgent." Of course he did. The whole family was probably panicking, realizing they'd be watching the IPO announcement with the rest of the world instead of from the VIP section. "No calls," I replied. "Not until after tomorrow." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stood at my apartment window, looking out at the city lights, remembering how far we'd come. The first 2 years had been brutal. 18-hour workdays, constant technical challenges, competitors trying to steal our technology. There were nights I almost gave up, almost called my father to apologize, almost took one of the corporate jobs my family kept pushing at me. But every time I wavered, I remembered their dismissal of my dreams, their certainty that they knew best, their attempt to force me into their version of success. That memory became fuel, driving me to push harder, work longer, dream bigger. The next morning, I arrived at Novatech headquarters at 7 a.m. The plaza outside was already filled with reporters, photographers, and financial analysts. Our logo, a rising phoenix, gleamed on the building's facade, a fitting symbol for what was about to unfold. Sarah met me in the lobby. "Your family just arrived," she said. Security wasn't sure whether to let them in. I smiled. Put them in the front row. I want them to have the best view possible. The auditorium was packed. In the front row, exactly as I'd requested, sat my parents, Caroline and my brother Michael. They dressed for success. Designer suits, perfect hair, carefully crafted expressions of family pride, as if they'd supported me all along. At exactly 9 a.m., I walked onto the stage. Camera flashes erupted. The room fell silent. "Good morning," I began. 5 years ago, I made a choice that many people thought was foolish. I turned down a prestigious corporate position to pursue a dream. Some called it a fantasy. Others called it career suicide. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Those people were wrong. Today, Novatech is revolutionizing how humans interact with artificial intelligence. Our technology is used by 50 million people worldwide. Our partnerships include some of the largest tech companies on the planet. I clicked to the first slide, our financial projections. Novatech's initial public offering values the company at $15 billion. The room erupted in murmurs. I saw my mother's hand fly to her throat. Caroline dropped her phone. "But this isn't just about money," I continued. "It's about vision, about believing in something when no one else does, about creating technology that makes people's lives better." I clicked to the next slide, our corporate giving program. That's why I'm announcing that 20% of Novatech's IPO proceeds will fund scholarships for young entrepreneurs. People with dreams that might seem impossible. People who need someone to believe in them. The applause was thunderous. In the front row, my family sat frozen. Additionally, I added, enjoying the moment, "I'd like to thank Mason Technology, whose job offer I turned down 5 years ago, for demonstrating exactly what I didn't want to become." After the presentation, as reporters swarmed and congratulations poured in, my family approached the stage. They looked shell-shocked, as if they'd wandered into an alternate reality. "Daniel," my father's voice had lost its usual authority. "Son, we had no idea." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "I tried to tell you, multiple times. You didn't want to listen." "We were just trying to protect you," my mother interjected, "to make sure you had a secure future." I gestured at the auditorium, the reporters, the stock ticker already showing Novatech's soaring share price. "How's this for secure?" Caroline stepped forward, her Goldman Sachs confidence notably diminished. "We should have supported you. We were wrong." "Yes," I agreed simply. "You were." "Perhaps," my father cleared his throat, "we could discuss this over dinner. As a family, I know several excellent investment advisors who could help you manage your new wealth." I held up a hand, stopping him. "No thanks. I already have an excellent team, including the same lawyers who helped you cut off my trust fund 5 years ago." His face reddened. "Son, about that. Water under the bridge," I said. "Though you might be interested to know that those $3 million you took back, they'd be worth about $90 million today if you'd left them invested in Novatech's first round." The look on his face was worth every cup of instant ramen I'd eaten, every sleepless night I'd worked, every moment of doubt I pushed through. Sarah appeared at my elbow. "Sorry to interrupt, but Google's CEO is waiting for our call." I turned back to my family. "If you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. I'm sure you understand, being successful business people yourselves." As I walked away, I heard my mother's shaky whisper, "What have we done?" Later that evening, after the stock had closed at twice its opening price and the champagne had been drunk, I sat in my office holding my old trust fund agreement. The paper that had once seemed like a death sentence now felt like a gift. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "We're proud of you, son. Ready to be part of your life again whenever you're ready." I didn't respond. Instead, I signed the final document on my desk, the paperwork establishing the Novatech Innovation Fund, dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs whose families wouldn't. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's succeeding so spectacularly that they have to live with the knowledge of what they threw away. My assistant knocked on the door. Tomorrow's schedule is packed. Meetings with Microsoft, Apple, and 3 major investment banks. I nodded, finally ready to toss the trust fund agreement in the shredder. Let's show them what else they missed out on. The next morning's Wall Street Journal headline said it all. "Novatech IPO creates new tech billionaire. Family who cut him off missed out on fortune." But I wasn't done yet. This was just the beginning. Because success, real success, isn't about proving your worth to those who doubted you. It's about proving it to yourself.
Trisha looked at the note for what felt like the 10th time. The handwriting was clear, but the content was crushing. Trisha, I'm sorry, but I can't go on like this. I've fallen in love with another woman, and today she and I are leaving for another city. Don't look for us. Tell the kids I love them. Hector. She slowly sank back into her chair, fingering the note as though that small scrap of paper could offer any comfort. It just can't be, Trisha muttered quietly. She had noticed something strange about Hector lately but didn't want to believe it. It's true that a wife is often the last to find out about her husband's infidelity. He used to tell her he worked hard, that he was tired, staying out late, and being gone all weekend. Even the children seemed to suspect something, especially their eldest, Zach, who was now 14. Trisha knew that at his age, he could understand that his parents didn't love each other and were together only out of necessity. Yet, in front of the children, she maintained the facade of a happy family. Daddy just works hard, she'd answer their questions, smiling to make it believable. He does it for us. She noticed Zach's skeptical frown, but he didn't question her further, likely to spare his younger siblings, or perhaps he believed the adults would resolve it themselves. Trisha had long been tortured by suspicions and did her best to ignore them. She found long blonde hairs in her husband's car, even though her own hair was dark walnut-colored and cut short. Just giving a ride to one of his co-workers, Trisha explained her suspicious finding. She also rationalized the smell of another woman's perfume on his clothes, the late-night messages, and the evasive looks from his friends. Why, she thought, clutching the note in her hands, did I justify him when everything was so obvious? But the reason was simple. She was used to trusting him, and she had never lied to Hector, even about minor matters throughout their 15-year marriage. Or maybe she was just terrified of shattering the stable world she had grown so accustomed to over the years. Don't trouble trouble until trouble troubles you, Trisha's grandmother used to say. Trisha did just that, pretending everything was as it used to be until Hector took the first step. Mom, what are we having for dinner tonight? Zach asked, peering into the kitchen. He had a knack for sensing her mood and immediately realized something was off. Trisha flinched, attempting to hide the note, but her son snatched it from her hands. After reading it for a few seconds, he sighed maturely, not surprised, as though he had long been prepared for such a situation. I see. Have you called him yet? Why? What do you mean, why? The eldest son responded, sitting next to her. Among all the children, he resembled Trisha the most with his dark hazel hair, expressive green eyes, and straight, neat nose. But unlike the gentle Trisha, Zach was serious and wise beyond his years, as if preparing to take on the role of family head. You'll have to discuss divorce, alimony, and who's going to pay for the flat. We still have a mortgage for 5 more years. You're probably right. I should talk to him about it. It's just that I don't believe it's real yet. Her son sighed, covering her hand with his. I understand, Mum. This is very difficult for you right now, but we both knew this was going to happen at some point. How long has he been cheating on you? 3 years? 5 years? Trisha recoiled. I don't know, and let's not discuss that. You'd better call your younger sister and brother to dinner. Zach stood up. Okay, you're not going to tell them yet, right? No, I'll contact your father first. Trisha crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. However, despite her attempts, Hector didn't answer any calls or texts. At his work, Trisha was told that he had resigned a few days ago. She also called some of his friends, but they didn't know anything either. The woman gazed thoughtfully out the window. The children were asleep, giving her time to deliberate on her next steps. After Alicia, their youngest daughter, was born 7 years ago, it became apparent that Trisha would not be able to go to work for a long time. What's the point? Her husband had asked. Even if you work double shifts at the hospital, your salary won't cover expenses for babysitting, cleaning, cooking. Someone has to take care of the children and the house while you are at work. Trisha sighed, acknowledging that nurses were not well paid. Why don't you focus on the house and the children? I'm sure we'll manage financially. So she heeded her husband's advice and resigned from the hospital where she had worked for many years. There was a shortage of nurses, and her responsible, careful nature was greatly valued, making her departure a significant loss. She hadn't wanted to quit, she enjoyed her work. But juggling it with caring for her husband and children was challenging. After leaving her job, Trisha initially felt lost. Her mornings were now spent taking Alicia and Brandon to kindergarten and Zach to school. She would then go grocery shopping, wash dishes, tidy up toys, do laundry, sweep and mop the floors. By the time lunch was ready, it was time to fetch the younger ones from kindergarten. Picking up Zach from school used to be part of her routine, but once Brandon started attending kindergarten, Zach protested. "I'm an adult now," he told his mother. "I can walk to school by myself," Zach insisted. "You're only 9, Trisha objected. Zach furrowed his eyebrows stubbornly. "The school is near the house. You already have 2 kids to pick up from kindergarten, and then there's me. I'm embarrassed to walk with my mom like a little kid." Sighing, Trisha reluctantly agreed. Once Zach made up his mind, he was unyielding. Over time, Trisha settled into her home life routine and could hardly remember her working days. Hector's income was sufficient, and he was content to return to a clean house, a hot dinner, and well care for children. He appreciated that his wife no longer smelled of iodine and other hospital scents. However, now Trisha was at a loss about what to do. She hadn't worked for 7 years, and they still had a few more years to pay off the mortgage. The money she had could last for a month or 2 if they cut all expenses. She hoped Hector would come to his senses and call, but she had a gut feeling that wouldn't happen. What should she do then? Where would she get money? Trisha had no one to help her. She didn't know her father, and her mother had passed away 5 years ago. "I need to find a job," Trisha thought, "or we'll end up on the street." The woman sitting across from Trisha glanced at her resume again and sighed heavily, pushing her heavy metal-rimmed glasses down to the tip of her nose. It was nearly the end of the workday, and the employment officer wanted to finish up and go home. But now she had to deal with this situation. A 30-year-old woman, the mother of 3, who hadn't worked for 7 years, having last been a nurse in a hospital. "I don't know what to suggest to you," she said. "I assume daily duty or even full-time work wouldn't suit you." Trisha sighed and gestured dismissively. The woman snorted in displeasure. "Then I have nothing to offer you." "Nothing at all?" Trisha asked for clarification. "Yes," she said briefly, but seeing the look of desperation on Trisha's face, the woman tried to reassure her. "I still have your phone number. If anything comes up, I'll call you." "Thank you," Trisha said, smiling before she walked out and carefully closed the door behind her. Once outside, she got into her old black Toyota, a car she had purchased before her marriage. Leaning back in the driver's seat, Trisha exhaled slowly. "It's okay," she muttered to herself. "I'll overcome everything." She mentally counted her remaining money. It was enough to last another month. She had already minimized her expenses but didn't want to compromise on her children's needs. However, if she couldn't secure a job, she'd have to cut back further. She considered selling her belongings. Her clothes and shoes weren't particularly valuable, but she could pawn her jewelry, laptop, and perhaps the TV in her bedroom. But what's next? Would she have to take a full-time job? What about the kids, left alone from morning till night? Zach was 14, Brandon was 10, and Alicia was 7. They were not babies, and Zach had been saying he could cope with the younger ones, feed them, take them out of school, make them do their homework. But did she have the right to put the responsibilities of adulthood on his shoulders so early? 2 weeks later, Trisha received a sudden phone call. "Hello," she said carefully into the receiver, a sense of dread creeping over her as she anticipated an offer for some credit or a tale of a suspicious transaction on her card. Unexpectedly, the pleasant female voice on the other end surprised her. "Hello, my name is Mary Austin. Your number was given to me by the employment service. Are you still looking for a job?" "Yes," Trisha replied hastily, embarrassed by her own impulsiveness. "Good." The woman seemed genuinely pleased. "It says here you have many years of experience as a nurse and have worked with critically ill patients." "That's correct," Trisha confirmed. I'd like to ask, would you consider a position as a caregiver? Trisha hesitated for a moment. She had never worked as a caregiver, but she reasoned it couldn't be much harder than nursing. If she could manage an entire ward, she could certainly handle one seriously ill person. I would need to know all the conditions first, she answered cautiously. Of course. I'll tell you everything, Mary Austin promised. Would it be convenient for you to come to my office tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock? Yes, of course. Great. I'll text you the address. See you tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you. Goodbye, Trisha replied, ending the call. Her heart pounded inexplicably. It was too early to celebrate, but the spark of hope had been reignited. After dropping the kids off at school, she drove to the appointment. Along the way, she replayed potential answers to any questions she might be asked and noted down her own queries on her phone. The office was in the city center, inside a huge modern business center. As Trisha stepped into the immaculate, almost silent elevator, she surmised that Mary Austin must work for some very affluent people. Good afternoon. Who are you? A young, pretty girl, likely a secretary, greeted her in the reception area. I have an appointment here for an interview at 10 in the morning, Trisha informed her, for the position of caregiver. Oh, the girl replied, surprised yet sympathetic, but she quickly regained her composure and smiled politely. Please sit down. I'll check everything. Trisha sat down as the secretary called on the phone and asked something quietly and quickly into the receiver. The answer was apparently positive. The secretary then stood up, smiled at Trisha again, and said, Miss Austin is expecting you. Please come in. Trisha was escorted like royalty. She was slightly unsettled, doubting a mere nurse could receive such treatment. She even wondered if there had been a mix-up. Hello, Trisha said briefly as she entered the office. Mary Austin was an attractive woman around Trisha's age. She had black hair tied neatly in a low ponytail, an expensive pair of glasses, and was clad in a business suit. Good afternoon. Please have a seat, she gestured to a soft chair opposite hers. Our records show you have extensive experience as a nurse, including care for critically ill patients. You're also interested in a caregiver position, the woman asked. That's correct. Good. I represent the interests of a client who needs such a caregiver. He has been paralyzed below the waist for several years and suffers from several cardiovascular, respiratory, and digestive diseases, Mary explained. Trisha nodded, showing she was attentively listening. Physically, your work won't be strenuous. The entire house is adapted for my client's needs. It has a motorized wheelchair, elevators, handrails, etc. Medical tasks will be simple. Injections, pills, drips, and so on. Nothing you wouldn't know how to do as a nurse. I see, Trisha said. Mary paused as if choosing her words carefully. Then she asked, I guess you have children. Trisha swallowed. From that moment, the woman at the employment center had looked at her in a way that made it clear she would never get a job, but there was no point in lying. I have 3, Trisha replied. Mary nodded thoughtfully. They're all in school, and they'll be on vacation soon, right? Yes, in a couple of weeks. Are you considering a residential option? My client's house is out of town. It would be inconvenient for you to commute daily. Trisha shook her head. I don't have anyone to leave my children with, she said sadly, expecting to be dismissed. But Mary said, you don't have to leave them. You and your children will live together on the estate in the outbuilding. It's a separate, cozy building. I assure you, you'll like it. Trisha looked at her incredulously. Are you saying that we can live in the tenant's house for free? Mary nodded and smiled. Additionally, you won't have to cook. The meals are free, as is the lodging. You'll eat with the rest of the staff. That sounds tempting, Trisha said cautiously, suspecting a catch. Exactly, Mary confirmed cheerfully. Would you like to know the work hours and wages? I would, Trisha replied cautiously. Mary swiped across her tablet screen and turned it towards Trisha, whose eyes widened. This is the weekly pay, she explained. In a week? Trisha was even more surprised. So much? Yes, Mary sighed, a little too humanly, distracting from her flawless business image. I understand you're expecting a catch, and there is one. Trisha pressed her lips together, slowly nodding and looking questioningly at Mary, who removed her glasses and tiredly rubbed the bridge of her nose. My client is a unique individual with a challenging character. Not everyone can get along with him, Mary said finally. Trisha exhaled in relief. That's it. I've encountered all sorts of people in my years at the hospital. We didn't receive additional pay for dealing with difficult personalities. It's not quite that simple. I can't guarantee a stable work schedule. Essentially, if my client decides he needs you at 2 a.m., you will have to wake up and be there. But everything you mentioned before is accurate. Yes, the salary, as I previously mentioned, is paid weekly due to high staff turnover. You and your children will live in a separate building and have meals provided. If you or the children need transport, a car with a driver will be available. So in return, Mary continued, you'll need to be flexible with your time and understanding of my client's needs. I must care for an irritable elderly millionaire and be ready to serve at any moment. You could say that, Mary replied. I'm ready, said Trisha. When can we start? After some time spent on paperwork and waiting for the children's holiday to start, they finally packed up and headed to Mr. Arnold's estate. Mom, is he some sort of madman? Brandon asked. We're going to an isolated place. Trisha flushed, aware that the driver, Frank, was listening. He had been sent by her new employer. Brandon, Trisha scolded, we're not just going anywhere. It's a closed settlement. Mr. Arnold is an ordinary person. Please mind your words when you meet him. This job is crucial to me. Mr. Arnold will likely only meet you, Frank interjected. He isn't fond of new people. Also, he instructed me to take you directly to the outbuilding. I see, responded Trisha. Shortly afterward, they arrived at the settlement. Wow, Brandon exclaimed. If there are people living here, they must be very wealthy. Brandon and Zach chuckled while Alicia almost hit her forehead against the glass, straining to see everything. Once they drove through the entire settlement, they reached a large area enclosed by an elegant yet tall wrought iron fence. The driver pressed a button on a small black remote, and the gate swung open. We are now entering the estate grounds, Frank commented. They drove for a while along a road lined with neatly trimmed trees. A massive modern house made of glass and metal loomed ahead. However, the car veered left and didn't head towards the mansion. A few minutes later, they pulled up to a small, tidy wooden house. Upon entering, Trisha noticed that despite its compact exterior, the house was surprisingly spacious inside. The small entryway led directly into a living room that also served as a kitchen and dining room. A large ensuite bathroom was available, and most importantly, there were 4 bedrooms. Wow, Brandon squealed. Am I getting my own bedroom? Trisha smiled. It appears so. In their apartment, the brothers shared a room while only Alicia had her own. Zach gazed at his mother and smiled. He's all grown up now, thought Trisha. He needed a separate room a long time ago. Meanwhile, Frank had already brought in all their things and said, settle down and rest. They'll probably call you for dinner in about an hour. That's when you'll meet everyone. Thank you, Frank, said Trisha sincerely. He smiled. It was a pleasure to meet you all. I hope you enjoy it here and decide to stay. In the hour they had, everyone managed to unpack their things and start getting used to their new surroundings. I really like it here, exclaimed Alicia, running up to Trisha and hugging her legs. Trisha smiled and stroked her daughter's hair. I'm very glad, she said. I hope you won't get bored here while I work. Just then, there was a knock at the door and a tall, fair-haired, brown-eyed man entered the cottage. He was dressed simply in a white t-shirt and black jeans, but his confident demeanor suggested that he played a significant role there. Good afternoon, everyone, he greeted. My name is Nick. I'm Mr. Arnold's assistant and the manager of this house. Pleased to meet you, she replied. My name is Trisha, and these are my children, Zach, Brandon, and Alicia. How do you do? Greeted the children in unison. Nick smiled. I'm very glad. I'm sure you'll liven up our sleepy kingdom. Now, let's all go have lunch. He led them down a path that led to the side entrance of the mansion. Through this door, they entered a large, cozy kitchen. Here are our newcomers, greeted a cheerful woman's voice. Trisha saw a slightly overweight woman in her 50s. "I'm Sarah," she said. "I'm in charge of food in this house. Please join us at the table." Trisha introduced herself and the children, and they took their seats at the table. There were about 10 other people there, all employees of the manor. They introduced themselves to Trisha, but she was so nervous that she merely smiled and nodded in response. Nick sat to Trisha's right. "Don't worry," he whispered in her ear. "You'll remember everyone in a couple of days." "How do you know what I was thinking?" Trisha asked. "It's not difficult. When I got a job here myself and everyone was introduced to me, I thought the same thing." Trisha grinned. Her initial fear had subsided. Everyone seemed very nice and friendly, and the kids were well behaved. After lunch, Nick took Trisha to meet the boss while Frank volunteered to give the children a tour of the estate. When Nick and Trisha stopped in front of the office door, her employer's assistant looked her gently in the eyes and said, "Trisha, remember, any comments that Mr. Arnold makes are not personal. He is just an elderly man with a difficult past and a bad temper. That's why we're offering you a good salary and luxurious conditions." "Thank you for saying that, Nick, but don't worry. I'm tougher than I look." "I'm sure you are," Nick smiled, then knocked and opened the door. A creaky old voice called out, "I thought I was going to die in here before any of you decided to come in. I wonder why I pay you all such a high salary." In a chair by the window sat an old hunched man. Trisha immediately thought he was the type of character depicted in books as an evil old relative to a poor orphan. It was clear that Mr. Arnold had once been tall and robust, but age had made him frail, drawing him closer to the ground. His shoulders remained broad, even a little proudly so. With his short gray hair, stubble, long straight nose, tightly closed lips, and eyes that were angry and prickly, he looked at Trisha coldly. His eyes, once probably blue or green, were now so faded it was hard to tell. When he studied Trisha with those eyes, it was as if he was scanning her, checking what was inside. "Who is it?" he asked Nick, ignoring Trisha as if she weren't capable of answering. "This is Trisha," Nick replied. "She'll be your new nurse." "Hello, nice to meet you, Mr. Arnold," Trisha said, unwilling to stand around waiting to be addressed. The old man frowned unhappily, as if he had tasted something sour. "Yes," he said, "they get worse every time." "Fine, Nick, we'll see how we can work with her later." The assistant gave Trisha one last smile and left. Without Nick, Trisha instantly felt vulnerable, but she was unwavering in her decision not to let her mentee ruin her mood. She needed this job. She liked the cozy house where they were located and appreciated not having to go anywhere. She certainly had no plans to leave within a week. So Trisha composed herself, smiled, and said, "Well, where should we start? Maybe I should shave you first. You look more like a homeless man than a millionaire." "Why did I say that?" she thought in horror. "I wanted to discuss my skills, how I'm a highly qualified nurse. Now he's going to fire me for sure." Mr. Arnold raised his thick eyebrows and unexpectedly burst into laughter. "Like a homeless man," he exclaimed. "Well, if that's the case, lead me to the bathroom." "Where's your bathroom?" she asked. The old man rolled his eyes. Now that's professionalism at its best. He pressed a button on the arm of his chair and started moving. Trisha had no choice but to follow him. Mr. Arnold led her to a large, spacious room. Trisha had a few seconds to take in her surroundings and was amazed at how conveniently everything was arranged. She found a cape, shaving foam, and a shaving machine. "Do you even know how to use these?" Mr. Arnold asked doubtfully. "I do," Trisha replied calmly. The last time she had used it was back when she was still working at the hospital. One of the patients had asked her to shave him before neck surgery because he couldn't do it himself. His hands were shaking. "I'll manage," Trisha thought. After finishing her work, she looked at the result with satisfaction. "There," she said, turning her wart towards the mirror. An entirely different look. Mr. Arnold saw himself and was aghast. "What have you done, you fool?" he shouted. "Couldn't you at least leave a few millimeters? Why did you cut everything to zero? Now all my wrinkles and folds are visible. I look like I'm about to die." Trisha swallowed but decided not to show fear. It's unhygienic, she said sternly, and it looks better on you. Trust me, as a woman. The old man chuckled. Have you ever had a man, woman? You look like an old maid. Trisha flared up. She had arrived here in a simple dress, without makeup, and her hair in a ponytail. Don't worry, she said dryly. I have 3 children. Mr. Arnold whistled. And with different men, he said snidely. From one. Well, he's an interesting type. He has 3 children and sent his woman to work. Trisha pressed her lips together. We broke up. Why? Did you piss him off so he ran away? That's none of your business, Trisha answered, sharper than she intended. What's next on the plan? Mr. Arnold grumbled. Take the tablet from the table. There should be a detailed schedule. Trisha found the tablet at the indicated place and looked it over. Indeed, there was a lot to do. It seemed that Mr. Arnold was seriously ill, judging by the number of pills and injections he required daily. Have you had lunch yet? The woman asked. No, I was waiting for you. Of course I've had lunch. I see. Trisha decided not to respond to his rudeness. Then you can take a rest, and I'll make an eye. Now you're a genius, I see. She clenched the tablet, her fingers turning white, but said nothing. Should we start the drip with you lying down? Trisha, gathering her courage, once asked Nick if their boss had a wife and children. As far as I know, he replied, no children, but he had 4 wives. 4. Trisha gasped. Yes, he married his first wife when he was quite young. I think she was from a wealthy family, and he was either working for her father or they were in business together. I'm not sure. It was a marriage of convenience, and in the end, they divorced. Then he married a model who was 10 or 15 years younger. They were together for 3 or 4 years, but he caught her cheating and divorced her as well. The 3rd wife left him. She was a young and pretty girl, and she quickly got bored with him. Wow, Trisha sighed. And the 4th? The 4th was an old friend of his. They were the same age and had known each other for a long time. They married when they were both over 50. They seemed to have a good life together, but she died about 5 years ago of cancer. That's sad, Trisha commented. Yes, those who have been working here longer than me say that's when he changed. He was supposedly quite bearable before, not an angel, of course, but one could live with him. Now he's becoming more difficult each day. That's sorrowful. Does he have any relatives? Nick shrugged. He has a sister who has her own children and grandchildren, but they live abroad and rarely visit. He's a very lonely man, said Trisha. It's sad to be so sick and to live alone in a huge house. True, replied Nick. He takes his frustrations out on those around him. Every evening, Trisha looked forward to the end of the workday when she could finally spend time with her children. They had settled in quite well. All the staff on the estate were friendly towards Zach, Brandon, and especially little Alicia. Sarah treated them with snacks, and Frank would take them for rides with Trisha's permission when he had errands for the boss. They loved exploring the estate with its massive garden and many beautiful, quiet corners. They only made sure to avoid the master of the house, which wasn't difficult. Mr. Arnold only went for walks with Trisha, usually in the morning and occasionally in the afternoon or late evening. After 2 weeks, Trisha was reminded for the first time of her irregular working hours. She and the children had long been asleep when her phone suddenly rang. It was Nick. Trisha rushed to the house immediately. Mr. Arnold is having a seizure. Instantly awake, Trisha remembered she had been warned that her patient could have such attacks. Without bothering to dress, she threw on a robe and rushed into the house. She quickly entered the bedroom. Mr. Arnold was half lying on the bed, breathing so hard that she heard his whistles and wheezes from afar. Next to him was Nick, who had already opened the windows and was gathering the medical supplies. Nodding in gratitude, she began to work. She placed an oxygen mask over Mr. Arnold's face and started the oxygen supply. She then found the necessary medication and administered it. Thankfully, the attack wasn't severe, and the drugs took effect quickly. How are you, Mr. Arnold? She asked once his pulse and breathing had stabilized. The old man wheezed, for a man who nearly died, unwell. You need some hot tea, Trisha suggested. I'll have it made right away. Good, he replied. Oh, also, I have one more favor to ask. Will you do it? Trisha nodded. Yes, of course. What is it? Hurry up next time, or you'll be too late. Trisha felt her sympathy for the old man evaporate. I'll try, she replied coolly. I'll go and arrange for the tea. After she had asked for the tea to be made, Nick came into the kitchen. How are you? He asked. Fine. That's just the way he is. He'll play the scumbag till the end, even when he's dead. Play? Trisha asked. That's the way he is, in my mind. The manager sighed and ran his hand through his hair. You know, he said in a confidential tone, I sometimes think the boss isn't really like that. He just decided at some point that this was the only way to communicate with the world, and he's now afraid to act human. Trisha shrugged her shoulders. A noble version, Nick, but I'm sorry. I believe he's being sincere. Nick smiled. Would you like some coffee? He suggested. No, I'd rather go to bed. Good night. Good night, Trisha. The next day, when Trisha and the children arrived for breakfast, Nick made an unexpected announcement. Trisha, you have the day off today. Why is that? Trisha wondered, puzzled. Nick shrugged. The chief said so. Mr. Arnold's sister is visiting with her kids today. I guess they'll look after him. Trisha frowned. But what about the injections and the drip? Nick waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry, we're calling a nurse from a private clinic. Why not have her come every day? Why do you need me? Trisha asked. Nick shrugged again. The boss doesn't like new people, Sarah chimed in with a smile as she served cheesecakes to the children. He insists on having someone permanent who knows all his habits. I see, Trisha replied, mentally noting that having a permanent staff member was more convenient for Mr. Arnold, who seemed to prefer making life difficult for someone who wouldn't be replaced frequently. She kept her thoughts to herself in front of the children, wanting them to believe she had a good job. Frank, the cheerful driver, then spoke up. If you don't mind, I can take the kids to the zoo. We can stop for lunch somewhere along the way. Hooray! Alicia cheered. She was the closest to the young driver, who always paid special attention to the children. No, my dears, Trisha said firmly. Frank has the day off, and I can't impose on him. But Frank dismissed her concerns. Don't worry, Trisha. I'm going to the zoo with my nephew, who's 10. I can take your kids too. It's not a problem. Trisha looked at her children with doubt. We'll behave, Brandon promised, while Zach shrugged and said, I'll go if I have to. All right, Trisha conceded. Then I'll go get some money. You don't have to, Frank replied. The boss always leaves us money for small expenses. Don't even worry about it. Sarah reassured her. After breakfast, Frank and the kids will head to the garage to start the car. You and Nick can stay here and chat. Once the children had left with Frank, only Nick and Trisha remained in the kitchen. Do you have plans for the weekend? Nick asked. I'm not sure, Trisha replied. I guess I should go to the city and check on the apartment. Nick's interest piqued. Do you want to go together? I have a couple of errands for the boss to run. It won't take long, and then we can check your apartment. We could have lunch on the way back, if you don't mind. Yes, we can, Trisha agreed. She felt at ease with Nick. He knew how to keep a conversation going without being intrusive, discussing his current affairs without revealing too much. Trisha realized how much she had missed simple human interaction since her resignation from her previous job. Her life had since revolved solely around her husband and children. She had friends from college and work, but their lives were filled with husbands, children, and jobs, making it difficult to meet often. After Hector left, Trisha retreated into her worries, consumed by job prospects, mortgage payments, and her children's needs. She had little time left for herself. How long have you been working for Mr. Arnold? Trisha asked Nick. Nick thought for a moment before replying, 5 years. That's a long time, Trisha exclaimed. Well, aside from you, I'm probably the newest person here. How do you all manage to stay? Nick chuckled. When I started, he was maybe a bit gentler, but he was never particularly kind. I can't deny it's been challenging. I wanted to quit about 7 times a day during my first 6 months. I can imagine, Trisha sighed. Eventually, it became less frequent, and now I don't think about it at all. What keeps you here? Trisha asked. Is it just the salary? The salary plays a part, yes, but it's not the only reason, Nick replied. It's also the experience. I manage the house and help Mr. Arnold conduct business remotely. Despite his frail appearance, his mind is still sharp. I doubt I could find another job that offers the same opportunity to learn about managing such large assets. I see, said Trisha, but doesn't your life revolve around Mr. Arnold? Doesn't that seem like a pity? I assume you hardly see your wife and children at home. Nick laughed. Well, I'm only 33, despite looking a bit older. I don't have a wife or children yet. No fiancé? Trisha asked. No, Nick replied. Girlfriend? No. That seems a bit suspicious, Trisha said with a small laugh. I'm just a workaholic, Nick admitted. I want to start a family when I'm sure I can provide for them. As they arrived at her apartment, Nick asked, Can you wait here for just 15 minutes? Then we'll head to your place. Sure, Trisha replied. Nick grabbed a folder with documents and left. Trisha sat alone in the car, reflecting on how she, like Nick, might find herself tied to this house and the difficult old man for years to come. It was summer now, but she wondered what would happen when the kids went back to school in the fall. Mary Austin, who had hired her, hadn't discussed long-term plans with her, likely because she hadn't expected Trisha to stay for so long. But Trisha was determined to hold on. No, Mr. Arnold, you won't chase me away, she thought, biting her lip as she recalled last night's fear and sympathy for him. As soon as he could breathe, he had insulted her. Nick returned, breaking her reverie. He looked pleased. Ready to go to your place? Yes, Trisha said, trying to shake off her worries. She was more accustomed to being in control. Great. Let's get lunch on the way, Nick said cheerfully. I'll show you a fantastic place, Nick said with a grin, although I doubt it can compare to Sarah's cooking. Trisha laughed. I'm sure you'll surprise me. Nick led her to a chic French restaurant located on the top floor of a high-rise business center. The cool air from the powerful air conditioners and the soothing background music were a refreshing change from the sweltering summer heat. They were seated at a table with 2 plush sofas by a window that offered a stunning view of the river and the bridge. Would you mind if I chose for you? Nick asked. Go ahead, Trisha replied. I'm not familiar with the menu here anyway. Nick nodded, and when the waiter arrived, he pointed out several items on the menu without showing them to Trisha. She was pleasantly surprised when the first item they'd brought her was a glass of red wine. It's only lunchtime, she reminded Nick. It's fine, Nick assured her. I'm driving. The wine was a perfect blend of moderate sweetness and tartness, and Trisha savored the taste, realizing it had been a long time since she'd simply sat down and enjoyed a leisurely drink. Thank you, she said. This is the most wonderful day I've had in a long time. Nick smiled. Wait until you taste the meal. You might want to thank me then. Curious, Trisha asked. Tell me about yourself. You're quite the mystery to me. Nick's eyebrows raised in amusement. A mystery? Why? I know nothing about you, she admitted. Neither do I know much about you, Nick replied with a chuckle. Fair enough. Let's start with you. Nick hummed in agreement. All right. I'm not from around here. I was born in a small town far away. I attended an ordinary school and grew up in a modest family, but I have always had big ambitions. That's why I decided to come here. It wasn't easy, but I managed. My student years were fun. I started working, changed jobs 5 times, and eventually landed at Mr. Arnold's. And that's the short version. There's a lot you left out, Trisha noted thoughtfully. Maybe I'll tell you more about it later, Nick said with a wink. For now, let's focus on you. Well, my story isn't very exciting, Trisha said with a shrug. I'm from here, raised by my mom. I never knew my father, and she didn't tell me much about him. She was a music teacher, so we lived modestly. Did you go to music school? Nick asked. Trisha sighed. Oh yes, 2 long years of my life. I only remember one tune now, Trisha said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. My mother made me play it all the time, and everything else has faded from memory. I practiced it so much that I could play it perfectly even if you woke me up at 2 a.m. What's the tune? Nick asked. Bach? Chopin? Tchaikovsky? No, it's not classical, Trisha replied with a hint of frustration. Honestly, I don't even know who composed it. My mom never told me, and I have a theory that she might have written it herself, but I can't confirm it. Do any of your children go to music school? Nick inquired. No, Trisha responded curtly. Unlike you, I didn't study music well. She continued, her tone shifting. For some reason, I suddenly decided I wanted to become a nurse. I thought it was a noble and romantic profession. It is, Nick agreed. I don't regret it, Trisha said, her voice softening. I found studying and working interesting, especially when I met Hector. Hector was your patient? Nick asked. Yes, Trisha replied. I had just started working, and I didn't know much. My hands would shake when I gave injections or did dressings. I thought it was obvious, but Hector didn't seem to notice. Nick smiled. I'm sure he fell in love with you at first sight. He did, Trisha said, her eyes reflecting a warm memory. I liked him too. We started dating soon after, and 6 months later we were married. Shortly after that, I found out I was pregnant. You became a young mom, Nick observed. Yes, Trisha nodded. The first time was difficult, but my mom was still alive then, and she helped me a lot. Zach grew up, went to kindergarten, and I went back to work. Then I got pregnant with Brandon when Zach was 4, and 3 years later, Alicia was born. After Alicia, we decided I'd stay home, so I didn't work for 7 years. Wow, Nick said. You've done a remarkable job, especially after such a long break. Trisha smiled. Thank you. That means a lot. Can I ask you a personal question? Nick ventured. Trisha took another sip of wine. Sure. Why did you and your husband split up? Nick asked gently. Trisha's expression darkened. He left me, just left a note saying he was in love with someone else. He didn't even speak to me about it. And the children? Nick pressed. He didn't say goodbye to them either, Trisha said with a sad smile. It was awful. As for child support, I manage. I'm fine now. That's why I'm holding on to this job. There was a brief silence as they both reflected on the conversation. Then Trisha asked, What about your love life? You're only 2 years younger than me. I can't believe you haven't had a serious relationship. Nick smiled wistfully. I have, actually. A long one, back when I was still in college. I once dated an ambitious girl, Nick began. We both had goals, but they were different. My focus was on my career, while hers was on finding a successful man. Aren't you a successful man? Trisha asked, surprised. Well, thank you for the compliment, Nick said with a modest smile. It's hard for me to judge myself. I say you are successful, Trisha affirmed. Much obliged, Nick replied, his smile widening. However, my girlfriend at the time didn't see me that way. She broke up with me, saying she deserved better. A very foolish woman, Trisha remarked. After that, Nick signaled the waiter. I need to get you more wine, he said. She left me, and I decided to become successful enough to make her regret leaving me. But as I progressed, I realized I didn't want to be with someone who valued me only for my status rather than for who I am. Trisha nodded in agreement. And I don't want to be with a man who left me with just a note on the table. Nick smiled sadly. I completely support that decision. The next morning, Trisha struggled to wake up. Her head pounded, her mouth was parched, and the sunlight streaming through the curtains was almost unbearable. She checked the clock. It was still early, but she felt as though she'd overslept, having forgotten to set her alarm. After a quick shower and brushing her teeth, Trisha ensured the children were still asleep before heading to the main house. Sarah was already bustling around the kitchen. Oh, Trisha, Sarah greeted her cheerfully. Good morning. You're up early today. Yes, Trisha replied hoarsely. It seems I had quite a wild day off yesterday. Sarah smiled understandingly. You'll be fine in an hour. This will help, she said, placing a large cup of fragrant tea, infused with berries and herbs, in front of Trisha. The best cure for a hangover. She then set a plate with a hearty sandwich, meat, lettuce, tomatoes, and eggs, before Trisha. This is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten, Trisha said blissfully. You're a magician. Sarah blushed with embarrassment. I'm glad you like it. As the workday began, Trisha felt significantly better. Mr. Arnold was unusually agreeable, perhaps influenced by his meeting with relatives. He offered no criticism and avoided derogatory remarks. You're surprisingly quiet today, Trisha observed during their afternoon walk. It's not evening yet, Mr. Arnold replied without malice. Are those your children? He'd asked, pointing to Brandon and Alicia playing around the fountain. Zach sat on a bench, reading a book with one eye while keeping an eye on the younger ones with the other. Yes, they are mine, Trisha said, apprehensive of a reprimand. Mr. Arnold simply nodded. They're good kids and seem friendly, he remarked. Thank you, Trisha replied cautiously. Are you raising them alone? Mr. Arnold continued, showing unexpected interest. I'm alone now, Trisha replied. That's why you put up with me, Mr. Arnold said, not as a question but as a statement. Trisha chose not to respond. I too wanted many children when I was younger, Mr. Arnold suddenly revealed, but it didn't work out. You've been married 4 times, haven't you? Trisha asked, surprised by her own boldness. She instantly regretted her question, realizing it wasn't her place to pry. Surprisingly, Mr. Arnold didn't react to her breach of etiquette. He seemed to gaze into the distance, as though mentally replaying his life. My first wife didn't want children, and at the time, neither did I. We were young and spoiled, both from wealthy families. We wanted to enjoy life. I was more interested in building a business. So why did you get married? Trisha inquired. Our parents insisted it was beneficial for the family, Mr. Arnold said. I wasn't opposed. She was attractive, and I thought we'd be fine, but after a few years it became clear we were entirely different people. I got divorced and threw myself into work. Could I have some water, please? Mr. Arnold asked abruptly. Trisha handed him the bottle, and he took a sip before continuing. I don't have much to say about my second and third marriages. I married them for status. They were young and beautiful, but I quickly realized it wasn't what I wanted. All they wanted from me was money. He paused, and Trisha offered more water, but he shook his head. There was a time I could have known true love, Mr. Arnold said. Your fourth wife? Trisha began, but Mr. Arnold shook his head. No, before her. I didn't marry that woman. I've regretted it many times since, but I'd rather not discuss it. It's too personal. Trisha thought it odd that he would share so much but dismiss some aspects as too personal. My fourth wife became more of a friend, Mr. Arnold continued. I knew she had cancer when I proposed. Our families had been friends since childhood. We'd stayed in touch over the years. When we reconnected, we decided to spend some time together. Were you with her until the end? Trisha asked. Mr. Arnold nodded. She was a wonderful woman and a true friend. After she died, I didn't want anyone else. I sympathize with you, Trisha said sincerely. Mr. Arnold seemed to snap back to reality. We're talking too much. Let's go home. It's time for my evening pills. After this unexpected conversation, Trisha felt a new wave of sympathy for her boss. Although their communication hadn't improved significantly, she found his harsh words easier to bear. As summer waned, Trisha began to contemplate her future. As the new school year approached, Trisha asked her children, "How do you like it here?" "I like it very much," Alicia responded enthusiastically. "Anna cooks deliciously, Frank takes us everywhere, and the big garden lets us play all day." Trisha reminded her, "But you'll be going back to school soon." Alicia pulled a funny face. "I don't want to go back to school." Trisha sighed and turned to Brandon. "How about you?" "I like living here too," Brandon said, "but I know we have to go back to school in the city." He sighed as he spoke. Trisha then looked at her eldest, Zach. "I think we need to talk," Zach said, leading her to the yard. "Summer is ending, and we need to think about going back to school and our living situation." Trisha smiled. "You're as rational and serious as ever." Zach nodded. "Daddy called me the other day." Trisha's eyes widened in surprise. "Why didn't he call me?" "He's probably afraid, but he said he's very busy," Zach explained. I see, Trisha said. What did he want? He wants to meet with you, Zach said. Maybe to discuss the divorce or perhaps to reconcile. Trisha laughed. Reconcile? That's a surprise. Zach shrugged. Do you want that to happen? Trisha hesitated before answering. I'm not sure. Do you? Zach shook his head. I don't mind if Brandon and Alicia want to see him, but it's up to you. He's your father, after all. Trisha sighed. I don't think I love him anymore, and I can't forgive what he did. You don't have to forgive him, Zach said. But regarding school, maybe you should talk to Nick. He might have some ideas. I'll try, Trisha said, hugging her son. You're the smartest as always. Everything will be all right, Mom, Zach assured her. Tell Dad I'm ready to talk if he calls. I'll let him know. A few days later, after completing their morning routines, Trisha and Mr. Arnold were getting ready to leave when Nick entered the room. Ready? Mr. Arnold asked. Absolutely, Nick replied. Trisha, you're coming with us too, Mr. Arnold said, addressing her. Trisha looked surprised. Me? Yes, Mr. Arnold replied calmly. I have a lot of paperwork to sign and several meetings to attend. I may need you at any time. What if you have a seizure? Trisha asked. I don't want to be in a situation where you're unwell in front of business partners. As they drove to the business center, Nick said, We're not sure how long it will take. You can wait for us in the restaurant on the top floor of the building. Just ask them to bill everything to Mr. Arnold. Okay, Trisha replied. If I need anything, Nick will call. At the restaurant, Trisha ordered tea and tiramisu. She suddenly realized this might be a good opportunity to meet her husband. Since he was in town and they had important matters to discuss, she called him. He agreed to meet her. What a nice place you picked, Hector said as he sat down at the table. He hadn't changed much except for losing some weight. You look wonderful, Trisha complimented. Thank you, Hector replied. You look great too. He shrugged shyly. I'm glad you called. Trisha sighed. We should have talked a long time ago, at least to decide when to finalize the divorce. What I wanted to discuss, Hector began, moving closer and gently placing his hand on hers, is that maybe we were too hasty. Perhaps we don't need a divorce. Trisha pulled her hand away, incredulous. Hasty? It was you who left me. You left a note, didn't say goodbye to the children, and vanished from our lives without a word. After 15 years of marriage, you disappeared as if we meant nothing to you. Hector shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Forgive me, he said, looking ashamed. I don't know what came over me. It was like a momentary lapse of sanity. Trisha sighed deeply. I won't ask about your infidelity or why you decided to leave. But why couldn't you talk to me properly? Why did you abandon the children? Hector lowered his gaze. I don't know, Trisha. I think it was a midlife crisis. Everything became overwhelming, the work, the household chores, the kids. You were always with them, and I felt left out. I was exhausted by the responsibilities. Trisha's voice was cold. Is your new love young and carefree, without the burdens of children? Sort of, Hector admitted. I lost my head back then. I didn't have the courage to face you or the kids. But now I realize how much I miss you and the children. I want things to go back to how they were. Trisha shook her head slowly. Nothing has changed. We'll reunite, and you'll just run off with someone else in a few weeks. I won't do that, Hector insisted. Trisha sighed. Hector, I've had time to think. I can't forgive you, and my love for you has faded. We need to set a date to file for divorce. Hector's expression shifted, and the pretense of tenderness and remorse faded. Then we need to discuss the division of property, he said. Trisha agreed. Your car is yours, mine is mine, and the apartment will be for me and the kids. Hector disagreed. No, let's sell it and split the proceeds equally. Equally? Trisha snapped. I'm raising 3 children on my own. You're suggesting we split everything when you've left me to handle all of this. Hector looked embarrassed but remained firm. I've been paying the mortgage and you didn't work. You were relying on me. Oh, really? Trisha shot back. I was taking care of the house and the kids while you were out. And now you're saying you'll keep the apartment? Hector's face pleaded. Then let's get back together, and we won't have to deal with the property split. Trisha shook her head firmly. No, Hector. That's not going to happen. I've already said my piece, Hector sneered, his voice dropping to a venomous hiss. Would want you with 3 kids. Do you think any man but me would look at you? You're just a domestic drone. All you're good for is cooking soup. Tears streamed down Trisha's face as she absorbed his cruel words. It hurt deeply coming from the man she had loved for years and the father of her children. Go on, play hard to get, Hector continued. You'll end up coming back to me on your knees. A familiar male voice interrupted from behind Trisha. She won't, Nick said firmly. Before Trisha could react, Hector was sent flying across the restaurant, crashing to the floor. Nick stood with his hand still clenched from the impact, his expression unreadable. It was tough, but maybe instructive, Mr. Arnold commented, looking pleased as if he had just witnessed an interesting spectacle. Trisha glanced around in disbelief. You're here, she asked, astonished. Did you hear everything? I heard enough, Mr. Arnold replied dryly. Hector, still reeling on the floor and pressing his hand to his bleeding face, muttered, We'll talk again. Wow, Mr. Arnold said with a note of admiration, I should get out of the estate more often. Turns out, it's quite entertaining out here. Shall we go home? Yes, let's go, Trisha replied quietly, wiping her tears away. At home, Nick sent Trisha to the kitchen to have some tea and calm down. We have something to discuss with Mr. Arnold, he said. Just relax for a bit. I'll call you. But Trisha couldn't relax. Her mind raced with worries. Would she be dismissed for the altercation? Would Mr. Arnold want to fire her after the incident? What about the apartment and the split? How would she manage with the kids and a potential new job? And there was still the looming issue of school. Trisha, let's go, Nick said, pulling her from her thoughts. The expression on his face was unreadable as he guided her to Mr. Arnold's office. Mr. Arnold greeted her with a cheerfulness that seemed out of place. What a spectacle you've put on today. I'm sorry, Trisha said, feeling a surge of anxiety. I didn't expect things to go this way. That's all right, Mr. Arnold replied. In fact, it was rather amusing. But let's move on to other matters. Trisha's heart pounded with fear. Do you want me to continue working here? Are you expecting to be fired? Mr. Arnold asked, his tone neutral. No, I don't want to be fired, Trisha said quickly. Then I won't fire you, Mr. Arnold assured her. Trisha was taken aback. Your children will be starting school soon, Mr. Arnold continued. I'll arrange for a car and driver to take them to and from school. Trisha was stunned. But why? She asked, her voice filled with confusion and surprise. I don't want to find a new caregiver, Mr. Arnold said calmly. Thank you, Trisha muttered, still processing the situation. We also need to discuss your living arrangements, Nick added. What about them? Trisha asked, confused. Mr. Arnold explained, living in that house during the winter is one option. It's warm, but it's not very convenient to go back and forth in the frost. Let's show you new rooms. New rooms? Trisha asked, puzzled. There's a wing of the house that's practically empty, Nick explained. We plan to move you there. They left the study and headed toward a part of the house Trisha had never seen before. Why is this wing empty? She asked, curiosity piqued. Mr. Arnold sighed. It's part of my past, he said. I wanted to forget it, but now I realize it's time to leave the past behind. They entered the largest room. This is the common room, Mr. Arnold said. There are 4 bedrooms off of it, just enough for you. Trisha looked around in surprise. Each room was like a separate work of art. The furniture was beautiful and tastefully selected, and the walls were adorned with pictures. Everything was meticulously arranged, though it was evident that the rooms had been unused for years. Trisha's curiosity was piqued further when she noticed a familiar shape under a white cloth. A piano, she exclaimed. May I? Mr. Arnold shrugged, giving his consent. Trisha carefully lifted the cloth and ran her fingers over the keys. Though slightly out of tune, the piano was still playable. She sat down and began to play the only melody she remembered, one her mother had played for her countless times since childhood. The first few notes were a bit awkward, but her fingers quickly remembered the tune, and soon she was playing effortlessly. With her back to Mr. Arnold, she was unaware of the changes in his expression. At first, his face showed astonishment, then he turned away as if needing to confirm that his ears weren't deceiving him. Tears began to roll down his cheeks. Nick watched in surprise. "Mr. Arnold, what's wrong?" he asked. Trisha stopped playing and turned, her eyes widening in concern as she saw Mr. Arnold sobbing and wiping his face with his sleeve. "How do you know that tune?" Mr. Arnold asked, his voice choked with emotion. "It was written just for me." Once Mr. Arnold and Trisha had calmed down, they returned to his study where Mr. Arnold began his story. "When I met Megan," he started, "I was still married to my second wife. We had stopped living together, only meeting to discuss property division. I was exhausted from the divorce and everything that came with it. I let my driver go and decided to take a walk in the park. As I sat on a bench, I relished the simple pleasures, the sunshine, the songs of the birds, and the lush greenery. That's when I saw Megan. I was stunned, my heart pounding. She was so beautiful," Mr. Arnold said dreamily. "I've never seen anyone so striking, and when she smiled at me, I knew I was lost." Trisha glanced at Nick, who seemed embarrassed when she caught his eye, but he quickly refocused on Mr. Arnold. Meanwhile, Mr. Arnold appeared lost in memories from over 35 years ago. "My feet led me to her," Mr. Arnold continued, "and for the first time in my life, I was afraid. I feared she would reject me. I'd known many women, but none had captivated me like she did at first sight. To my delight, she agreed to see me." He smiled blissfully. "I don't think I've ever been so happy. My wife and I were already separated, so I brought Megan here and built this wing just for her. It's the sunniest part of the house. And the piano. Did she play for you?" Trisha interrupted. "Yes," Mr. Arnold replied. "Megan was a music teacher. The tune you played was composed especially for me." "Why did you two break up?" Trisha asked, noticing a tear rolling down Mr. Arnold's face. "I was a fool," he said quietly. "I wanted to marry Megan, but she refused. She said we were from different worlds and didn't want to be just a wealthy businessman's wife. I tried to persuade her, telling her she could be herself, but she ended the relationship." "Why do you say it was your fault?" Trisha asked. Mr. Arnold sighed. "Because I didn't insist on my own way. I gave in too easily and didn't realize she was pregnant." Trisha looked at him, her eyes widening. "Yes," he said calmly, "I'm sure you're my daughter." Trisha basked in the sun, feeling content. The sea always had a positive effect on her, especially now that they were vacationing as a family each year. "Mom, did you see that? I swam faster than Brandon." Alicia ran up, breathless with excitement. "Not faster. Don't lie," Brandon retorted, clearly exhausted but unwilling to admit defeat to his younger sister, who had been taking swim lessons for years. "I just let you win," Brandon said with a shrug. "Sure you did," Alicia replied, confident in her own abilities. Brandon ran off, clearly disgruntled, toward the beach house. "Honey, did you have to tease him?" Trisha gently scolded her daughter. "Okay, go take a shower. We'll head to dinner soon," she instructed. After Alicia had dashed off, Trisha reluctantly got up from her sunbed and walked toward the house. She saw Zach lying in a hammock, chatting on the phone. "Dinner in half an hour," she informed him. Zach nodded, acknowledging his mother's words. Inside, the spacious house was cool and inviting. Mr. Arnold and Nick were engaged in a game of chess. "We'll be going home in 3 days, and you haven't even gotten a tan," Trisha said, playfully ruffling her father's hair and giving him a kiss on the cheek. "Don't worry," her father reassured her. "We'll make it." "How's the sea?" Nick asked. "Warm," Trisha replied. "And the game?" "It's a draw," Mr. Arnold sighed. "Nick is not only adopting my business acumen but also my chess-playing skills." Nick grinned. "I learn from the best," he said. "Checkmate," Nick declared. "Oh, you," Mr. Arnold swore, suddenly surprised. Alicia appeared, feigning severity. "Grandpa, what did you say?" Mr. Arnold coughed in embarrassment. Young lady, that's a phrase you're not allowed to say for another 8 years. Alicia laughed. We have worse swear words at school, she said, then dashed off to the shower. We need to change schools, Mr. Arnold declared decisively. I won't have my only granddaughter learning such language. Then we may have to change grandfathers too, Trisha joked, laughing. Alicia hears those words most often from you. A fair point, her father conceded with a sigh. I'll try to swear less often. Trisha smiled as she looked out at the sea through the panoramic windows of their cottage. The large red sun was setting on the horizon. I feel so good, she commented. Nick came over and wrapped his arms around her from behind. I always feel good with you, he replied. Me too, Trisha agreed. I'm perfectly happy.